All right, good morning. I'm Christina Kosmowski. I run our Global Customer Success and Services organization at Slack, and we're super excited to be here today to talk about a little bit of background around how customer success became at Slack, and then we're going to talk about the methods and the vehicles by which we deliver customer success at Slack. And so with that, I'm going to pass it off to Rob, who coincidentally, it's his 2-year anniversary at Slack, so very
Thank
excited.
you.
Yes. And he's going to give a little bit of background on how how customer success became at Slack.
Good morning, everyone. This is like being at a very weird wedding, like a very big, large, weird wedding. It's wonderful to be here. So as Christina mentioned, my name is Dhaliwal. In case you hadn't realized, Christina's my boss, so when you do fill in the session evaluation, feel free to write very nice things about me. So yeah, I've been fortunate enough to be at the inception of Slack's customer success team. I actually joined in the 3rd week of its existence, and I was the first member of the team outside of North America, and I also had the distinction of opening our first UK office, which for about 4 or 5 months looked suspiciously like my dining room. So, quick poll, hands up here, who has heard about Slack? This slide is pointless then, basically, right?
Love it.
That's great. It's great to see so many hands go up. So, for those of you who aren't aware, Slack is a messaging platform. It's designed to bring the people, the tools, and the content that you need to do your work all into one place, and to make all of that searchable and mobile. And our mission at Slack, and our mission is actually very intrinsically core to how we operate both as a business, a success team, and how we build the product. And Christina's going to kind of circle back on the mission when we talk about hiring. But our mission at Slack is to make people's working lives simpler, more pleasant, and more productive. That mission seems to be going pretty well. So as we are getting towards the end of the year, we have hit just over 6 million daily active users. I think we're around 10 million weekly. And we have a very sticky product. People spend around over 2 hours a day, 2.25 hours a day on average, working in Slack. And this isn't actually a North American or Silicon Valley phenomena. As you can see here, 55% of our users are actually outside of the US. So you're probably wondering, with this sort of level of adoption and continuing adoption and this level of stickiness, why on earth does Slack need a customer success team? And so to answer that question, we're going to take a little look back to the summer of 2015. So in the summer of 2015, Slack had been around, it had been launched about just over a year, and it had passed a really major milestone, 1 million daily active users. I think actually around June or July, it was about 1.25 million. And at that time in the organization, we had a role. We had this role called the account manager. And the account manager's role was to answer sort of all inbound sales queries, to close deals with customers, teach them a lot of best practices, get them launched, get them onboarded, do some training. And this worked fantastically well. It was really great, very simple mechanism. But the challenge that we found is as we started to move into more complex customers, and by complex customers, what I really mean is customers who had decided to use Slack in a very strategic way, and they wanted to use it beyond a group of initial early adopters, our account managers started to run into a challenge. And they started to run into a challenge with adoption, and the challenge with adoption was these 2 guys. So I think these 2 guys are probably quite familiar. You've got Justin here. Justin is an engineer in a big company. He's super cool, he's very tech savvy, and he read about Slack on TechCrunch, and he was like, oh, I know this thing can really help us do our work. So before you know it, he swiped his credit card in, and 300 of Justin's colleagues are all using Slack every day to do their work. Now, Justin's company cottons onto this and say, well, actually, this looks like a really good thing for us to do. There's a lot of strategic advantage for us to actually start rolling out Slack wider and having the whole company use it. But the challenge is the company's full of this guy, Bob. Bob works in accounts. Bob has never heard of Slack. He has been given all sorts of tools over the years, like email and SharePoint and all sorts of things, and none of them have particularly worked for him. And so the difference between Justin and Bob, we found, was that Justin had a very strong awareness of what Slack actually is, and he had a very good desire to use it. And because he's sort of a technically proficient early adopter type person, he had the knowledge to be able to use it and actually apply that knowledge to his day-to-day work. Whereas Bob obviously wasn't in that position. He didn't have any of those things because Justin wanted to use Slack and Bob had been told to use it. And so what we realized was, as an organization, that we needed to help the Bobs of the world, because the bigger the companies you deal with, the more people there are like Bob. And so we needed to help Bob change the way that he worked. And that involved obviously needing a role and a function to support that, and that was customer success. But that's just one aspect of why we recognize the need to have a customer success team to help those Bobs of the world change the way they work. The other aspect is what we call it maturity of use. Some people call it proficiency, some people call it ultimate utilization, but we refer to it as maturity. Now, what I mean by that is Slack is a freemium product, right? You can use it for free. You can even swipe your credit card and buy it and never talk to us. And so a lot of our customers are in what we call an organic level of maturity. They are using Slack really mostly for messaging within an individual team because it's a group of people trying to solve a problem. But really, they're not actually utilizing the full value of the platform. They're just using it for messaging. So as a success team, what we want to do is to help them understand the value of what they've purchased and unlock it for them so we can move them towards what we call an activated state of maturity. And that is actually where we're helping the customer put some governance in. There's a support model. We're investing in some education, maybe even train the trainer. And so that means that we can then start to guide them on using Slack for more complex workflows, making use of the thousands of apps we have in our app store to connect in all the other tools so they can start building nice, lightweight business processes, approval processes, or product routing processes, for example. And we start to actually help nurture up and formalize the groundswell by creating champion networks across the business so people can then start working cross-functionally. So we're moving from that organic use, individual team, to starting to create cross-functional workflows, because ultimately what we'd like our customers to do, the true value, would be to connect the whole organization. So actually moving from teams and business units to connecting everybody wall to wall, and actually starting to integrate your in-house business apps, the things that are core to your business, so they surface through the platform and people can engage with them in a more efficient way. And then starting to bring in the external people you work with through things like our shared channels, whether it's contractors or external consultancies, because ultimately we want to drive maturity in customers, so we're transforming their business. So they are actually getting real competitive advantage and moving beyond just using Slack for messaging and embedding it in their day-to-day workflow, taking advantage of things like our artificial intelligence, building conversational interfaces with bots. So they're really, really transforming the way that they work. So in summary, before I hand over to Christina, the two reasons why we identified we needed a customer success team was, one, we had to help those people who had been told to use Slack because they needed to change the way they work, and that changes can be very hard. We have a phrase where we say that the changes are inevitable, but the pain is optional. So we wanted to help people through that pain. And finally, we wanted to make sure everyone, regardless of the type of individual, uses Slack in the most mature and sophisticated way. Because for us, that's great. That means more product stickiness, which obviously we all want for our companies. But most importantly, it drives the most business value for customers. So now I've explained a little bit about the history and the background as to why we have a customer success team. I'm going to hand over to Christina, who's going to talk to you about how we actually go about delivering it.
Great. Thank you, Rob. So how do we do customer success at Slack? So first, in the early days, we had a handful of customer success managers, and we just had them going out and doing various activities, trying to look for patterns. What's working at customers? What's not working? What are successful customers starting to look like? And so we came up with some of these patterns. So you can see here, here's some key patterns. Many of these may look similar to what you're using in your industry or product. It's not necessarily specific to Slack, but some of the key things to call out here, obviously executive sponsorship's critical, not just at the top level or just in the IT, CIO, VP of IT level, but within departments, especially with a product like Slack where we're trying to go wall to wall. It's really important that we have those individual department sponsors as well. And then it's critical that we create this champion network. And this is something that Rob referred to a little bit in the maturity slide. But we really want those champions. Those can be IT administrators. They can be power users within organizations. They can be training and development specialists. But these people are really out there championing Slack, learning more, understanding how that they can progress Slack through their individual organizations. Then workflow, and what are those business use cases? What does it really look like in terms of a day in the life of the user? If we can really embed into what their additional workflow looks like, we're gonna get great success. It's also important that there's some sort of approach. It doesn't necessarily have to be heavyweight, but something lightweight that says this is our approach for how we're gonna deliver, and there's key milestones and dates that correspond to that. So once we have those set of activities, it's important that we deliver them at the right time based on where the customer is in their journey with Slack. And so we took a mapping of what customers are going through with their journey, and this is what we came up with. This looks linear, but it's not linear. It doesn't have to be linear. It's really where the customer comes in at different stages. And it can also be, they can have multiple journeys going on if they've got multiple different user sets using Slack. So you can see we've come up with some key activities in each of these phases of the journey. So you heard Nick talk a little bit earlier about scale and efficiency. So we know that we need to deliver these activities at the right time to our customers, but we also have to deliver them in the best vehicle, in the way that's most efficient for our customers to receive and consume this, and is also most efficient from our internal Slack side. So we've got two models that we've broken it out into. The first is do it with me. And so this is really our guided customer success approach. So we've got high touch, which is where you get a customer success manager, someone's connected to your account, and they're delivering many of these activities via a person. We've also got triggered engagements, where we might have a pool of resources that would engage with customers based on a request that's coming from the customer, a request that's coming from someone internal in Slack, or even the data is telling us that we need to engage in some of these key activities with our customers. It's also important that we don't just deliver through people, that we deliver through programs, and that we can bring one-to-many events and programs to bear as well. With a product like Slack, it's important that we also really understand how we can embed into customers' architecture. And so we've got a technical component where we're really looking at what is security, compliance, integrations, really building some of those workflows and use cases and integrating with other data sets. So we're not just communicating with people, but we're also communicating with data. And then, of course, it's important that we've got a retention and renewal strategy so that we're really looking at what are those early indicators? What's the data showing us? What are those patterns that we're seeing across our successful customers so that we can ensure that we're constantly evolving what our methodologies and journeys look like? So some of this isn't enough for all of our customers. They say, all right, we need a boost. We need some extra resources. We're going through a really intense phase here with Slack. And so we need someone to help us do it for them. And so we've got an internal professional services where we do paid offerings. We can do that on a subscription basis. We can do it on a time and materials basis with fixed scope and fixed time. And then we've also started to utilize partners to help extend our reach. So this is really our operating model that we're organized at Slack. So now we've looked for those patterns. We've identified the key activities that are successful customers. We're delivering them at the right time through the right vehicles. So what's next? We also need to have a repeatable methodology. It can't be super heavyweight. We want to be lightweight. We want to be simple. We want to be easy to do business with, as Oracle was just talking about. So we've come up with kind of a very simple three-step process where you can understand, design, and launch. And we've got critical assets that belong to this that can be repeatable and usable by all of our customer success managers. We also deliver those assets, again, through programs, not just through people. And finally, you've got to have a great team to build this. So our mission at Slack is to make people's working lives more simpler, pleasant, and productive. It's important that our people align to that mission, that they align to the core values that Slack has. I know Nick was talking about the key values that they have at Gainsight and how important that is. At Slack, it's critical for us as well, that we ensure that our people understand that craftsmanship's important, empathy, and most importantly, playfulness. We want to bring fun back into the workplace. Our product is fun. People want to use it. It's engaging. We want to be engaging and playful and have complete competency as well. So you can see we've got some of our key leaders here on this chart. So we've got people that are delivering high touch. We've got people that are leading programs. We've got people that are leading data and really understanding what does our retention strategy look like. We've got services. We've got partners. So hopefully you guys got a great summary today of how we're looking at customer success, why it came about, what our delivery methods look like. And so in summary, the first is, what are the key activities and patterns that successful customers look like at your company? Define the customer journey. And again, it does not have to be linear. Create an operating model so that you can deliver these activities at the right time via the right vehicle. Create assets and methods that help you scale. And make sure that you're hiring for soft skills and people that align to your values, not just based on competency. So thank you guys for having us. We're super excited to be here, and I think we're handing it off to Cisco. All right.